Hello everyone, and welcome to the UWSA 2026 General Elections All-Candidate Debate for the position of Vice President, Finance and Operations. My name is Ghallia Hashem, and I have the honor of serving as your Chief Returning Officer for this election season. The purpose of this debate is to give candidates the opportunity to present their platforms, explain their priorities, and engage with key issues facing students at the University of Windsor. A reminder to all candidates and attendees that this debate is being conducted in accordance with the UWSA elections policy. Civility, respect, and professionalism are expected at all times. This debate is being recorded and will be posted on UWSA platforms. It's also being live streamed. Hello to everyone watching. Each candidate will now have 1 minute to deliver their opening statements. A 15-second warning will be issued before that time expires. Once time is up, candidates must conclude their remarks. We will now begin with opening statements. Aiden, you may now begin.
Hello, my name is Aiden Guthrie. You may have seen me around campus these past few days, talking to a bunch of students, and it's because I've been trying to get an understanding of what the student body wants for a VPFO. And from these conversations, what I've retained is that there's two main pillars that all VPFO candidates should gravitate towards. The first one being having efficiency in the finance office. What I mean by that is in the past few years, it's taken a long time for financial transactions requests to get fulfilled, whether it's student club requests for funding or reimbursement. So I think that's my main priority when going into this, because that is one of the biggest problems that we have. The second one being exposing students to clubs, because I think the most crucial part of a university experience is being exposed to clubs and having those groups, because it opens up so many opportunities and allows people to express themselves and meet so many new people who they would not.
Your time is up. Thank you so much. Shafi, on to you.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me today. My name is Shafi Aziz, as Ghallia mentioned. I'm a computer science and business student, which means I bring strong financial understanding and core conceptual ideas into my role. Now, one of my fundamental principles when I want to be elected for this role is very simple. It's smart financing and simple operations. Smart financing, meaning every dollar should go in an efficient manner, and of course you should always think about the future of sustainability with all the funds in the UWSA. And when I talk about simple operations, I'm referring to making student life easier to navigate on campus with my revolutionary idea, which is called Clubs Go, an all-in-one app/website where students can sign up for different clubs, go into different events, and also get literacy workshops. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafi. Gurleen, you may now begin.
Hi, my name is Gurleen. I'm a third-year law and politics student, and to me, VPFO isn't just about the members, it's about accountability and trust. So my campaign is built on three main pillars. So pillar one is financial accountability, which is basically where your money goes, and with what intention are we using that money. And then the second pillar is operational excellence. I wanted to use digital bus passes. I wanted to meet the executives and of clubs and societies at least once a month, or at least in the beginning, to see what your goals are, so I know that you're on the right track and I can do everything in my power to help you. I also want to have a policy of my door is always open. Regardless of if I win or not, my door is legit always open. You can DM me about anything, and I will try my best to answer your questions, because I think it's important that your university experience is less chaotic and more fun. And along with that, my third pillar is a resource bank, which I will introduce a club portal where you can find all information about clubs, including their social media, emails, and how to contact them, and how to join their club, and also descriptions of the clubs. And I also want to introduce workshops with alumni and other professionals, so you have that experience before going into whatever field.
Your time is finished. Thank you so much. Mary Mia, you may now begin.
Good afternoon, Lancers. My name is Mary Mia, and I'm running for VPFO for the UWSA. As a second-year aeronautics student, I understand precision, accountability, and responsibility. Over the 2 terms on the UWSA, serving first-year representative and FAST representative, I have worked directly within the student governance and sat on the finance committee through both terms. I don't just oversee the budget, I already understand how it works. Now I want to make it better. Students deserve clear, accessible insight into where their fees go and how financial decisions are made. No faculty should feel overlooked. Equitable funding means every student community receives fair consideration and support. Before cutting student-facing services, we must prioritize operational efficiency and strategic reinvestment. During budget constraints and funding cuts, student governance needs to be steady, responsible, and focused on protecting students, and that is what I'm here to support.
Thank you to all of our candidates for their opening statements. We will now move on to the rapid fire round. This round consists of yes or no questions only. Candidates will indicate their responses using the papers they have. If you agree with the statement, please hold up yes, and if you disagree with the statement, please hold up no. Try to the best of your ability to make sure that the statement is facing the correct direction. Rebuttals are not permitted during this time, and no explanations will be permitted during this portion of the debate either. Question 1. Should VPFO recommend scaling back programming if current spending levels are not fiscally responsible, even if events are popular? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your answers. All 4 candidates have said no. Question 2. Should VPFO block VPSL from proceeding with a costly event if it's not in UWSA's long-term financial interests? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your answers. 2 candidates have said no, Mary, Mia, and Aiden, and 2 candidates have said yes, Gurleen and Shafeen. Question 3. Should UWSA pause new programming if it cannot be sustainably funded within its fiduciary obligations? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your answers. All candidates have said yes. Question 4. Should UWSA reallocate funds away from events towards student hardship supports in response to OSAP cuts? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your response. All candidates have said yes. Should VPFO publicly oppose an executive initiative if it threatens UWSA's financial sustainability? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your responses. We have 2 candidates saying no, Mary, Mia, and Gurleen, and 2 candidates saying yes, Shafeen and Aiden. Question number 6. Should UWSA maintain financial reserves even if it means fewer visible student life initiatives this year? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your responses. We have 1 candidate saying no, and that's Mary, Mia, and 3 candidates saying yes, Gurleen, Shafeen, and Aiden. Question 7. Should VPFO support canceling events that have already been announced if projected costs exceed responsible spending limits? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your answers. We have all candidates saying yes. Question 8. Should VPFO prioritize long-term financial stewardship over short-term student satisfaction during periods of provincial funding cuts? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your answers. We have 2 candidates saying yes, Mary, Mia, and Aiden, and 2 candidates saying no, Gurleen and Shafeen. Question 9. Should VPFO require measurable impact metrics before approving large programming expenses? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your responses, and all of our candidates have said yes. And our last question, should VPFO push back on the president if a proposed initiative conflicts with UWSA's fiduciary duty to students? In 3, 2, 1, please hold up your responses, and all of our candidates have answered yes. Thank you all so much for participating in the rapid fire question round. We are now going to move on to the platform challenge question for this debate. In this segment, I will pose 3 questions to each candidate that directly examines or challenges their platform. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Rebuttals are not permitted during this portion of the debate. We are going to begin with Aiden. You speak about financial sensitivity and how OSAP changes have affected your family directly. How would you translate that lived experience into concrete financial principles for how UWSA should manage student fees?
Well, I've undergone it directly because my mom is a single mother of 1, and she deals with 2 university students, and she's paying for all of our tuition. And going through that, the OSAP changes cutting from 85% down to 25%. It's a big change because we were getting around 40 to 55% of OSAP. So seeing that change, I think for the most part they're looking at it, the provincial government, we're looking at it as a statistic and not as people. And I think that's what we should do moving forward. We should be looking at, when we make decisions, when I would make decisions, I would look at the decision not as a statistic or a number on the screen. I would look at as like, how many students is this going to affect negatively if I undergo this decision.
Thank you, Aiden. Shafin, your question is next. You've worked with faculty councils and curriculum committees and emphasized responsible financial stewardship. Can you share one concrete example where you had to balance student needs with institutional or budget constraints, and what that taught you about financial governance?
One of the biggest examples I remember, and this impacted the School of Computer Science significantly, was the cuts on co-op training. So students needed extreme co-op interview training, and there was a lot of money in the School of Computer Science being used for that. And the issue with the institution within the School of Computer Science, the professors, is they needed that money for other factors in the department. The way I balance that is by measuring it with how much money you need in each term. Instead of assigning the entire budget in the beginning of the year, I did it on a needs basis. So every semester we did an actual metric to check how many students need co-op support. Based on that, we allocated exactly that much funding. I believe in smart finance, which means you should know exactly how much you need to spend. Money shouldn't be used inefficiently, and that was one of the examples where I did that.
Thank you, Shafin. Gurleen, you focused on operational modernization and creating clearer systems for clubs. Can you give one example from your experience where improving a process made student engagement more accessible or equitable?
Okay, so personally, I have a lot of experience of being a part of clubs. So I'm currently a president of a club, and I coordinate events for another club. And for me, when I had to collaborate with other clubs, not getting clear information on how to access them was really tough. So I feel like when there is a clear way to contact somebody, especially if you want to collaborate with somebody or if you want to go through a process of booking stuff, it's much easier when it's streamlined. When having everything in one spot, like one stop go, it makes things a lot easier on everybody involved. And for me, in university, I've done it with clubs I've been part of where I would be the delegate between multiple clubs I'm in, but going way back into high school, I started a whole club on its own, and I would have to start from the ground up, and doing all that work has taught me how efficient it is when you can go to one stop and have all the information you need.
Thank you, Gurleen. Mary Mia, you've served 2 years on the UWSA board and the finance committee. What is one financial or governance decision you were involved in that best prepared you for the VPFO role, and what did you learn from that process?
Recently, with the finance committee, we have, with the OSAP cuts and Bill 33 in effect, we received an issue of funding, the lack of funding from the University of Windsor towards clubs and societies. And with that, we had to best problem solve with coming forward with the best action and a proactive financial plan. And with that, we were able to support currently an activity that society was partaking in, but we must become more proactive and think about how we will delegate the money moving forward.
Thank you, Mary Mia. And that concludes round 1. We are now going to move on to round 2. Aiden, back to you. Your platform emphasizes communication, fairness, and transparency, but you note that you haven't held highly visible governance roles. What is one operational or financial process within UWSA that you believe needs reform, and how would you lead that change without prior experience in those systems?
I think one of the biggest changes that the UWSA needs currently is how the reimbursement and the club funding is sent out, because right now it takes months to get reimbursed and club funding, and it's not necessarily because the VPFO is unorganized, but because the system itself is kind of unorganized. So I think something that I would go towards is rework the system and implement something that we already use to make it a lot more efficient and make it better for the VPFO, for me, and for future VPFOs to be more organized. And yeah.
Thank you, Aiden. Shafin, your platform focuses on transparency, financial literacy, and streamlining funding processes for clubs. What would you change if simplifying access to funding led to more requests than UWSA could responsibly support? How would you prevent openness from turning into unsustainable demand?
It all comes down to how you receive from the clubs, right? The channel of communication. And again, that's where my fundamental idea of clubs go comes in. It's a one-and-all platform where you're going to have financial literacy workshops, along with places where you can actually upload your reimbursements. You can even check the status of your reimbursement from the Clubs Go portal. That way, it's not just a flood of messages coming in your email inbox or at the UWSA office. It's streamlined in the portal. There's statuses to every request received, and you can even check who's working on your request and when. So letting people be aware that we're working, even though we're going at a pace that's sustainable, is the important part. So of course, you'll have a lot of requests. It's all about streamlining it and organizing it so you can work through it one at a time. Again, that would be possible through Clubs Go. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafin. Gurleen, your platform proposes new supports for clubs like workshops and a resource bank. How would you evaluate whether investing in these operational supports is the best use of student fees compared to direct funding for student services or programming?
So for me personally, when I thought about bringing these workshops, my main goal wasn't to take resources away from students, it's to bring more resources. I know a lot of students struggle with how do I file my taxes, or how do I build a credit score, or we have a few international students and how do I get a PR? Just all around overall questions that they need answers to, but they have to go to resources outside the university, or they have to really dig deep on those resources to find them. And I want to make it easier for them. I want it to be, it could be online, where we have workshops online, or it could be in person in a room like this, and you have university alum come in to talk with the students. Because it's easier, personally, I think it's easier if you have that personal touch to it, so the students can really focus and listen on what advice is being given to them, and it helps. And I'm not saying that I'm going to put more student fees into this, I'm just saying it's going to be easier in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurleen. Mary Mia, you emphasize equitable funding across faculties and protecting traditions and services during financial constraints. How would you respond if equity required reducing funding to a popular initiative that primarily benefits one large faculty?
One way that you could respond to the equity and reducing, well, it's obviously not something all students would be all for, and obviously we do not want to cut out any major activities or any activities that partake on campus because they help promote student life and everyone coming together. But with all these financial cuts and reducing funding to popular initiatives, we would want to allocate the money accordingly to all faculties so everyone can feel like they have a safe spot at the university.
Thank you, Mary Mia. And that concludes round 2. We're now going to move on to the last round. Aiden, the VPFO regularly deals with contracts, long-term financial commitments, and institutional constraints. Can you describe a time you had to make or support a technical or financially complex decision and how you ensured you understood the implications before agreeing to it?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Absolutely. The VPFO regularly deals with contracts, long-term financial commitments, and institutional constraints. Can you describe a time you had to make or support a technical or financially complex decision and how you ensured you understood the implications before agreeing to it?
So I think one of the things that I understand about contracts and difficult financial decisions is that you have to fully understand what you're getting yourself into. You can't just agree to the most popular decision. You have to. It's okay to go with the unpopular decision if you truly think that that is the right decision. And while I haven't had personal opportunities where I've dealt with things like this, I know many executives in higher clubs, and they've told me about certain situations where they've had to deal with those things, and they've exposed me to certain opportunities like that, and they've shown me what it is like. So while I haven't personally, I have seen it multiple different times, and they've shown me what it is like and how to deal with those said situations.
Thank you, Aiden. Shafi. As principal signing authority, VPFO sometimes has to say no to popular initiatives proposed by other executives. Can you name a situation where you had to deny or reverse a decision made by peers for financial or governance reasons, and how you handled the pushback?
I'll never forget this. This was 2024. So last term I served as the Vice President of Finance and Events for the Muslim Student Association. And as I was sitting with the Vice President of Finance and I was the Vice President of Events, we had a huge roadblock, and that was we were willing to do an event with an organization called Miftah. And they wanted us to invest $2,000 into the event. However, our entire budget at that point of the year was only $3,000. We had multiple events left. It all came down to understanding priority. I'm not someone that's going to spend all my money into events just to have fun. It's about doing smart financing, I've always mentioned. So I remember at that time when we sat with the other executives, we made the decision, we're going to cut down on the bigger event because of how budget costly it is and focus on smaller ones. It's not always about big and amazing, it's about quantity and quality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shafiq. Gurleen. You emphasize accessibility and support for student groups. How would you handle a situation where a well-organized and popular student group requests funding that you believe is not fiscally responsible or aligned with UWSA's fiduciary duty?
So there's two ways you can go about this. The first route would be you can sit down with the executive team and you can go through a breakdown as to why they're asking funding the way they are, and see if you can help them in a way that if it doesn't align with what we can do for them, as to why. Because sometimes when you get a funding request denied, you don't know the details as to why. It does take time for that. So if they know exactly where they went wrong, it's easier for them in the future to get that right. And then secondly, another way you can go about doing it is, if you're a popular group and what you're requesting is not feasible, whether it's from policy guides or fiduciary duty, I don't think we have the obligation, nor should we have the obligation, to just let it slide through just because you're a popular group. It all comes back down to how responsible we can be with our money, because at the end of the day, this money is to support all students and it's funded by all the students. So if it's not responsible, then the answer will still be no, and we'll go through it in a way that's easier for everybody.
Thank you. Mary Mia. Because you've been part of the existing system, what is one current financial practice or assumption within UWSA that you think needs to be challenged or changed? And how would you avoid becoming constrained by the same structures you've worked within?
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Because you've been part of the existing system, what is one current financial practice or assumption within UWSA that you think needs to be challenged or changed? And how would you avoid becoming constrained by the same structures you've worked within?
One existing system that is currently practiced or part of the UWSA that should be challenged. That's a very good question. Potentially like the way and how transparent we are with our budget and our money. Not all students fully understand or comprehend, although we do express how we delegate the money to particular needs for UWSA, including like the bus pass and everything. Students don't fully understand how that money is fully being used to their or any other of their surrounding fellow companion students. So I feel like we could potentially work on our transparency.
Thank you so much. And that concludes the platform-specific questions section. We are now going to move on to the global questions portion of the debate. I will ask 3 broad questions relevant to the role of Vice President of Finance and Operations. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the question. Rebuttals are not permitted in this section. We will begin with Shafi. How do provincial policy changes like Bill C-33 affect the financial autonomy of student unions, and what constraints does that place on how VPFO can manage ancillary fees while still meeting fiduciary duties to students?
One of the biggest roadblocks with Bill 33, to summarize it for those that may not be familiar, is it really puts a curtain behind and in front of the budgeting. As a VPFO, one of the biggest things, the key word for your role is trust. When you have something like Bill 33 and governance has so much control over your funding, students begin to wonder if you're playing in favor of governance, you're playing in favor of students. And they can't make the decision, they can only assume because there's a curtain. The number one thing to overcome Bill 33 is to remove that financial curtain. It's about making sure all the expenses and claims and all the funding is accessible and visible to our students. That's when you earn their trust and you make them realize, of course you have to follow governance and the rules, but your priority is me, the Lancers. Thank you.
Going off of that, so it's true with Bill 33, it brings a lot of challenges because it basically gives the government the opportunity to basically decide for you what you can and cannot do. And that does bring a big constraint to the role of VPFO. And it's not just us, it does affect student life, advocacy, and the president because it puts, like you said, a curtain over our decisions. And he's right, it looks like we're favoring the government we're neglecting the students, but that's not true. It's a hard system to play because when you're dealing with the government, you have to play by their rules because we are getting funding from them at the end of the day. And it will be a challenge to navigate that, but I believe with your student voices and actually fighting the bill together, we can come up with a workaround. And even if we are stuck with this bill, God forbid, even if we are going to be stuck with this bill, I feel like we can work together to find the solution that will best suit all of your needs. Thank you.
Marianne?
Following those two answers, I do believe that the trust is a valuable thing that we must hold with our students, especially since they may not always see eye to eye in our decisions. But if Bill 33 is not able to change within the upcoming year, there are ways we can work around it or work through it. And one of those ways would be like creating job fairs for students that are in fourth year and preparing them up for success, making sure the financial strength of their OSAP and funding cuts that have affected them are not fully left on a burden with them and that they can be set up for success.
Aiden?
So I think one of the biggest problems with Bill 33 currently is that the student unions, they're people in power, they were elected by other students and they control other students. But the Bill 33 pretty much completely overrides that and they elect someone completely random who was not elected into the role and they can take full control over the entire situation. And I don't think that's fair at all because students, they elected that specific person and they should have power over that. And as VPFO, I think the best thing that we can do to work around Bill 33 is kind of work with the students and also the government. Because like they've mentioned, the government does fund us and we are with them. So it is a kind of a hard battle to do. But I think we should just analyze all of the ancillary fees that are affected and try to find a workaround that also helps the students but also works with the government.
Thank you. Moving on to question 2. We'll start with Gurley for this one. With OSAP cuts increasing financial strain on students, how should VPFO rethink the ethical use of ancillary fees so that UWSA is not asking students to fund services or programming they realistically cannot access? Absolutely. With OSAP cuts increasing financial strain on students, how should the VPFO rethink the ethical use of ancillary fees so that UWSA is not asking students to fund services or programming they realistically cannot access?
Okay, so with current OSAP cuts, sorry. So realistically, it is going to be harder to streamline exactly where that money is going. But if we can ideally do that, like when you're paying your tuition, your fees are going to UWSA, part of them, if we can really streamline where those fees are being used, you're not being overcharged for certain things. I do think that would be an ideal situation. That'd be great. But because that's going to be a little bit harder to do, the best that we can offer, well, I think I can offer, is to streamline a process in which we can provide an opportunity to help students that really need it. because OSAP cuts are going to affect everybody regardless of your income bracket. It's still going to affect you. It's going to affect everybody in a ruthless way, which is not ideal. But we can still turn this around. We can still vote against it. We can still sign petitions.
Thank you. Time is over. Mary Mia.
With the OSAP cuts and increasing financial strains for the university, it is crucial that we are proactive with our financial planning and that every dollar is used efficiently. This isn't just for students' wants, it's primarily for students' needs, what they really do need on campus and the support that they need throughout the school year. With that, we could always with the money that we have allocated or the money that we receive in future years, we would be able to present future scholarships or other funding support systems for students at the University of Windsor in order to support them with their future education and so they can finance their education accordingly.
Thank you. Edith?
So as VPFO, I think the best and most practical decision that I would have to do in this situation with LSAT cuts would be to take a step back and look at every single ancillary fee to see which one helps the students the most. So we look at each and every single one of them and analyze, see, okay, which one helps the most, which one helps the most students, and which one, if we were to cut the funds towards, would affect the most students negatively. And I think that's something that I would do moving forward with this because obviously OSAP cuts, it affects everyone. So I want to be able to have ancillary fees that everyone can still use, but obviously the most important ones.
And Shafin.
It's a two-step solution to this problem. There's a famous quote I really believe in. You don't need to climb the mountain, you just take the next step. If you ask yourself that each time you take a step, eventually you'll climb the mountain. When it comes to something like OSAP, you can't change it overnight. The very first step, as Aidan mentioned, of course, it goes without saying, is to focus on what's needed and what could be taken later, and doing a game of elimination. But more importantly, it's about letting students know where their money is going, especially at a time like this. If you ask the average Windsor student, how much money are you paying to the UWSA out of your tuition? Almost every time the answer is, I don't know. You have to log into the UInside student and go down to the breakdown to see how much you're paying the UWSA. The first step is recognition. Let the students recognize how much they're paying and where it's going. Then the next step is to see which ancillary fees you can cut, which ones you should keep. Thank you.
And for our last question, Mary Mia, you're going to begin. Student unions are facing increasing scrutiny over how student money is spent. What changes would you make to UWSA's financial governance or reporting to strengthen trust, transparency, and accountability in this political climate?
With the increasing scrutiny over how student money is spent, especially at the university, it is key that we are transparent and we provide easy breakdowns for students to understand. Nothing too complex, nothing with negative numbers where they are confused with how their money is being spent, but it is key that we provide them with the simplicity and as well as we could perform different workshops or insights meetings, always like open doors and email boxes in order to strengthen this trust, transparency, and accountability in this political climate.
Aidan?
As VPSL, I think one thing that should be the most obvious would be to just let the students have a voice. And what I mean by that is host student polls and let them email and have open question periods such as this where they can come in and voice their concerns because I think that's one of the most important things that the students, they can participate and they can make decisions as well as me because of course I'm going to have ethical and decisions based off statistics, but I think students also being able to come in and answer for themselves is also important. I think that would create a lot of transparency within the students and myself, and it would also give them, again, the chance to speak up.
Shafin?
When it comes to something like this, Almost always a debate happens when there's uncertainty. Should it be this? Should they get the money? Should he or she get the money? My fundamental principle is first, let the university and the students know who's deserving of the funding. And there's a clear way to find out who's deserving, and one of my fundamental disciplines is financial workshops. One thing I want to do is make it mandatory for all clubs to take part in the financial workshops. And new clubs that take part in it will get a special funding because of the fact they've proved to the university that they're financially literate. This way there's no debate, oh, why did that club get this much money and we got less? Because it's a clear line of why they're getting more as a new club and as someone that's done the workshops. So that's what I believe will make the biggest change in a time like this where money is short. Let people know who's deserving of it. There's no debate when it's a clear person that deserves it. Thank you.
My biggest thing is transparency, accountability, but exactly how do you do that? So when I first started planning for my campaign, one of my main things was financial accountability. That's one of my pillars. And I really want a where does your money go system. Basically, instead of giving you a report with a bunch of numbers and words about where that money is going, I want it to be a little bit more personable. Meaning, when we spend your money, I want you to know with what intention where it's going. Because it could just say, oh, it's going to this building. Okay, but why is it going to that building and not another building that doesn't have the same resources? So, in my opinion, if we add intent with accountability and transparency, I feel like that brings a much more clear view as to why money is being spent in a certain club or a certain society or in a certain building, rather than, oh, it's going here because of X, Y, Z. It's going there because of the intent. I think that is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And that concludes our global questions section. We are now going to have a 15-minute intermission. As you can see on the screen, there is a QR code. I welcome you all to scan that QR code and to submit questions to ask of your VPFO candidates. You can ask them to one, multiple, or all candidates. It's completely up to you. Please make sure to fill in that form, and we will come back in 15 minutes. So let's be back at 4:55. Thank you all. We'll see you after the intermission.
So then I had to hand it to Ghallia as I was talking. And then my mic was keeping cutting in and out for some reason. So then I was projecting, and then you're like, no. I was projecting, and then you went. For the people at home.
I want you to seriously. I was definitely have to actually I already have mine.
He wants to know who he should vote for. You actually.
Thank you. I love your answers. They were. It took me a minute to
Those that one was really tough.
Yeah, and it's like blue and like sage. You could go for the cocky. Yeah, you just have to follow it. So I don't know.
Are you ever fun maker?
You're like everyone. Yeah, I have
One more time, because no one actually is.
I did for it.
Oh, I think I own it.
Oh, yeah, right. Hit the high mark.
But I do, yeah. I've been good as well.
Language is always like
Here's the thing, that was my last semester before, 8 in the morning. Now I have 2 in the morning and 2, 7 to 9 o'clock.
See, I'd rather have a morning class than afternoon class. I'd be falling asleep.
7 to 9, I think I have to make
That is too late. If I'm up that late, my parents are gonna, you know. Unless I have a valid reason, but the class is like fine, but they still call me every time. Like if it's 9:50 and I haven't called them, they won't call me back.
My parents are right here, so it's 5 for now.
For me, it's the market. So we walk to the market.
I take the bus. So.
I'm sorry, I personally did not post mine.
Like I saw it in groups. Mine was in speech competition. I did airband and airband, like lip sync battle. I did a lip sync battle. Grade 5, I had my lip sync. did some stuff in grade 7. At grade 6, I was MC.
I'm sure you're used to debates, a lot of politics.
I am, yeah.
In grade 7, I was my safe school
Debates are my
I had a good friend, and so then we did like everything, like presenting and stuff like that. And grade 8, I did that. Grade 9, I was teacher representative. So that was OVP. I was also great. I stand for that voice.
Those roles I feel like in student life, they're my
Yeah, the badge, right?
So, and then grade 10, spoke to
The boring kind of badge.
and grade 9, I did the lecture. Grade 10, I did nothing. Grade 11, I did a school show. Grade 12.
It's fun campaign.
To do.
Yeah, it's fun way. It's a
No,
good
but,
learning
oh, sorry, grade 11, I actually didn't choose.
Learn how to produce public, learn how to comments or
It was more like interesting. Like, hey, did you see my? Yeah, that. And when I was at the dance, that's the interesting. As far as known around the school, it was like class.
It is. I've been a lecture online.
But I was also the HQ class. We had to change I also got recognized like 4 times in my like Western Are you the H1? You got all my name.
Right?
So then I knew they were
It's the worst thing in the world. Parents are like,
because like people like my age.
Well, how about you do?
I speak Punjabi, English, and French, and then I'll do the Hindi and Urdu. And then I dabbled into learning Korean and Mandarin, and
This is the world tour at this
yeah,
point.
at this point, Mandarin. Oh my gosh, I gave up on German because 3 genders. I'm not gonna do that to myself anymore. I took the semester and I was like, absolutely fine because I was taking 2 languages at once. So I was taking Spanish and German at the same time, and then my first language was English. And my last year, I didn't German, some, English, but it was just getting too confusing. No, I've gone to the point where I can understand Korean, but I'm afraid I'm not going to respond. It's all fine. I've got too many languages. Italian, yeah, when you know one language or something.
Maybe that should be a question. How many languages do you know?
How many languages?
We all go playing.
I know this bit. No, I've been speaking French since I started school. French is my first language in terms of what I'm learning in school.
Did you go to school in Quebec or? Oh wow. Which one did you go to? For high school?
For high school?
I went to Mass. I skipped all languages. So we're on opposite sides of that.
I mean, I have to my but I did French for my entire middle school, well, kindergarten until high school year. Like, all of it French. Up until grade 6, everything was French. I did not French. I still write my dollars out on pen. Ooh, okay.
Math and French. For me, math is still my mom. So, yeah,
This is your 1-minute warning, candidates. We are going to begin in 1 minute. If you could please make your way to the stage, it would be greatly appreciated.
Monster? Unfortunately for DS, he's not allowed Monster. I am drinking Monster.
Zero sugar.
Okay, and we are back. Thank you all. I hope you all enjoyed your little break. We are now going to enter into the open debate segment. In this portion of the debate, candidates may pose questions to one another through the moderator. Each candidate may exercise 1 rebuttal per question. To request a rebuttal, please raise your hand immediately after a statement you wish to challenge. Once recognized, the main speaker's time will be paused and the rebutting candidate will have up to 30 seconds to respond. The original speaker will then have up to 30 seconds to reply. Rebuttals must remain respectful and again directed through the moderator. All timing and recognition decisions are final. So, who wants to start? Shafin.
It's flashing. Does that mean it's out of battery?
You're all sharing the same.
Don't worry, that's okay.
All right, perfect. All right, so my first question is for Mary Mia. The question revolves around you served on the finance committee for 2 years, which is amazing. They do a lot of great work. But I really want to know about the knowledge and the experiences you've had over those 2 years. So my question to you is, what are some challenges you faced? 2 of the biggest challenges over your period of being in that committee for 2 years, and how did you overcome those challenges? That'd be a great learning point for me. Thank you.
From serving on the finance committee for 2 years, we have definitely faced multiple challenges, and some of them being not always satisfying the students to their wants or needs, especially with funding requests. Usually we try to allocate like a proper amount of money depending on the need, depending on the different participation the club or society or group has taken action with. And then another like issue, or not like issue, but another way we go through things is we have to make sure everyone, like obviously it's a majority vote, like everyone has to kind of be on the same page, so we always have to communicate well and get everyone's full insight on the issue or topic in order to make ethical decisions for the university.
Is there anyone else to ask any questions of their fellow candidates? Shufi?
All right, my next question is for the amazing person to my left, Aiden, if I didn't mistakenly. Okay, perfect. Amazing to have someone in first year running in the position. My question to Aiden is, do you think you have all the experience that's needed for the CFO role? And do you think you're someone that will grow into the role, or someone that's already coming in with a set amount of skills and assets that they'll use as a resource? I'd love to know about that. Thank you.
So, for the experience that I've had the past few years, and including high school as well, I've done a multiple case study events and also business events regarding like finance and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think I'd say that my strong suit is the fact that I'm in business currently. I'm going to be studying business every single day for the remainder of the semester and for 3 years on top of that. And I'm constantly seeing, I've already seen a lot of stuff in business regarding accounting and financial sheets and things obviously related to accounting. But again, I think my strong suit is the fact that I'm living in business right now. I'm studying it every single day, and if I were to get VPFO, I'll be not only doing my role as VPFO, but I'll also be studying business alongside. So I think, and also to answer your question, I think I'd grow with the position. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mary Mia?
I have a question for you, Shavin. So throughout this debate, I heard you discuss something called Clubs Go. With Clubs Go, I was just wondering, because I'm not familiar, and for all the students that aren't familiar, is that a platform that is paid for, and if so, how do you think students will fully benefit from that platform, and do you think it is proper to be allocating money towards that platform during a financial issue time?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Mary Mia. When I came up with the idea of Clubs Go, it was something that would be completely free for students to use. There wouldn't be any overhead budgeting on that initially. The main idea over it is to allocate resources in the right areas. So Clubs Go would be a place where you have all the clubs at the university, and you can go as a student, as soon as you log in with your student ID and password, see every club, and there's a calendar for that month with every event. The idea is to connect students with student life instead of having them roam around like a loose goose looking for events to keep them excited. The deeper side of Clubs Go, and the reason I want to have it, is on that same portal you would have all the reimbursement inquiries. So you're no longer running around, going to the office, emailing the CFO for the reimbursements. It's all in one platform. And the last thing, which is why it's the most important, that same platform would have financial literacy workshops. So essentially, it's streamlining everything you oversee as a VPFO in terms of clubs into one portal. Thank you.
Really?
Just to add on to Maria's question for you, so would this be an app on its own? Would this be a part of the UWSA website? Like, where would we be able to find this platform, this portal, if we do go through with it?
I don't want to make this an app, and the reason I don't is because there's, in terms of computer science aspect of it, there's more developing in an app. I want to make it cloud-based, and for those that don't speak computer science, I'm talking website. This would be an online portal you log into, and there would be a link for it in the UWSA website, but in itself, it would be a website of its own. I don't think it should be part of UWSA website because of how much data will be in it. I don't want the UWSA website to slow down. So this would be a different entity in its own to streamline student life, financial literacy, and club management at the university.
Mary? Sorry but I have a follow-up question with that. You said it would be free for students, but will it cost the UWSA any sort of amount of budgeting to create the platform and to keep it running? Will it become like a money grabber where it just takes all of our funding that students provide to us, or will it like potentially help?
There will definitely be money required for a platform like that. One of my two ideas on how to run that platform. Number one, use the assets you have. You don't have to look at a software developer in China and tell them, hey, I'll pay you enough to build this website. We have amazing computer scientists on campus. We have amazing economists on campus, and we have amazing science students. What I want to do is bring those students in, and as a part-time kind of role, they would help develop this. Similar to what Computer Science Society already has, where students volunteer to create their own website. The other side of it with budgeting is sponsorship. This is something I strive for very strongly. One of my main roles as soon as I get into office would be to start looking for more sponsorships. I think we can look at and partner with a lot of other organizations. Of course, we talk about student-to-student unity, but I think as an organization, if we reach out to more assets elsewhere, we can get a lot of that funding as well. But again, it'll be something very easy to manage because our resources we'll need for it are already on campus. Thank you.
A question for Gurleen. So you're the president of one club and then like a high-ranking member on the other one, correct? Could you argue that your attention might be diluted within those two other clubs compared to like other candidates here that would focus all of our attention simply on VPFO?
That's a really good question, and I get that asked a lot more than you actually think. Me personally, so I am a part of multiple clubs as of right now. I serve as a president on one of them, and I serve as a VP of finance on another, and a VP of fundraising on another. So I've kept myself busy. But if I do get elected, I would take a back burner on all of them. And if it means I won't be a part of those clubs, then that's what it will mean. Because to me, those clubs have taught me a lot of the skills that I need, and a lot of things that I think we need at the university as the VPFO. So as much as I love my clubs, I really do, I love all of you guys. But for me, if I really do get VPFO, I take the step back and really focus my attention as the VPFO, because I feel like I can do the most impact there. Yes, I bring a lot of impact, I believe I do, in all my clubs, but I feel like I can do a lot more as the VPFO, and the experience I have from all those clubs, I think I can bring them with me. Thank you.
Miriam? I have a question for Aiden. Throughout this debate, you discussed how there has been a wait time in the reimbursement for student funding in different clubs. Have you experienced that firsthand, or is there anything, can you expand further with that?
Well, I've experienced it myself through one thing. I'll share with you that in a second. But I've also heard it from multiple different members of clubs such as J. Sosa. They've told me that they've had to wait long periods of time for reimbursement. And sometimes it can be like $50 if it's a pizza or something that's not that expensive. But some other times it can be up to $500 if it's a hotel booking or something expensive. And to a lot of students, that money missing from their account for multiple months on end, that can be stressing. Most students can't really afford to have that. And something that I personally dealt with, it wasn't as high of an expense, but it's when I went to Toronto for a debate. We spent some money on some food and then the hotel as well. It took about, I think, a month and a half to get reimbursed for that. And it wasn't necessarily that I needed the money instantly, it's just that it was kind of annoying that I had to wait a month and a half to get reimbursed for $80 that realistically should take 2 months to get back to.
Thank you. That concludes our time for the open debate section part of our debate. We're now going to move on to the audience Q&A. Due to popular demand, we've increased the audience Q&A time frame from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. We can go through more questions. Some of the questions are posed towards one individual, others towards multiple, and some towards all. So we're going to go through as many as you can go through. Again, you are asked to keep your responses to 1 minute. No rebuttals will be permitted during this time. The first question is to Shafin. A Clubs Go platform has been quoted to cost approximately $20,000. The student group's budget is much smaller. What budget will you pull from to support this?
It's not always about pulling, it's about finding. I believe strongly in the word sponsorships. So if there is a case where we don't have enough, it's always about making connections. The UWSA in the past has been really good with their partners, and I'm going to expand on that connection. So that would be my ultimate solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafin. The next question is for Aiden. As a first-year student, what fresh perspectives do you believe you bring, and how do you plan to address any gaps in experience?
I think fresh perspectives that I bring regarding being a first-year student is that, while I have not had that much experience in finance positions, I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot from other people in higher years than me and in different clubs. But I think the fresh mind that I'll bring is that I can find inefficiencies within systems. Like, for example, I already found one within being here 2 semesters after asking around only a few amount of people regarding how reimbursements take a long time. And I found this after 2 weeks of looking around. So if I could find this in 2 weeks, imagine if I have other resources that can help me find other inefficiencies within the UWSA. And that's, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Gurleen. You mentioned creating a digital bus pass. This is already in the works. A current fear is that students will download the digital bus pass and then request an opt-out. How do you plan on mitigating this?
So in an ideal situation, I want to tie the digital bus pass to your physical one. So it's like having the same thing on your phone. So like when you have an Optimum card or an Air Miles card, I sound very old, I just work at a gas station, guys, okay? When you have one of those cards, you have them on your phone where you can scan it, and then you also have it in person, like as a physical card. So I feel like with the digital bus pass, that's how it works. So once you pick up your digital bus pass, it comes automatically with a QR code or a sign-up sheet to add that into your wallet on your iPhone or whatever device you're using. That's how it worked. So we can mitigate what you said about students opting out when they get that digital bus pass. It should be tied into that same account with that student instead of it being 2 different things. Thank you.
The next question is also for Gurleen. You mentioned creating a student group's executive highlight. There are over 200 clubs. How would you do this in a manner that is equal to all students?
So the way that it works is, there's already a university that does this. I cannot for the life of me remember it. I do have it somewhere in my folders. Once I remember, I will let you guys know. But what they basically have is on their website, when you go to Student Life, you'll see student clubs. You go to student clubs and it's in alphabetical order, and all it has is a club, the name of the club, a little picture, and then the email. I want to expand on that a little bit. Keep it alphabetical order so that it makes it easier to search, regardless of what club you're a part of. If it's in alphabetical order, it's much easier to find, and it alleviates that discrimination clause that people think when it's A to Z or Z to A, whatever it is, it's easier to find that way. Because it's, you know exactly what the name is, you know where you can search and where you can find it. You can use command find, and it's easier. And the way I want to elevate it, because as of right now, what I've seen is just an email, I want to add your social media tags. Because a lot of us are more active on our social media than our emails. And if we can add our social media, it takes you directly into their social media, and you can contact someone you know who the team is. So for me, I feel like that would be the easier route, is if you can add all that into one. Thank you.
Our next question goes towards Shafin and Gurleen. We can start with Shafin, we'll go back to Gurleen. You voted no against long-term sustainability with a preference to short-term enjoyment. Can you please share how you plan on managing funds so that the UWSA is able to continue to run in a healthy financial manner?
When it comes to the VPFO role, it's not about making sure UWSA survives 20 years later. That statement is false. It's also not about making sure the UWSA survives today. It's about making sure UWSA survives today, tomorrow, and 20 years in the future. So I wouldn't have a preference of whether I want to put future sustainability as a priority over temporary enjoyment. Of course, we'll be responsible with the money used at a temporary basis to make sure the money that's going towards current events is not so over the budget that future sustainability is at risk. Similarly, the other side of that coin, we're not going to waste so much money and save it for the future that the current events are very poor and students are losing the student life enjoyment and engagement. So it's all about the one key word in the CFO role, balance of budget. Thank you.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please? Absolutely. You voted no against long-term sustainability with a preference to short-term enjoyment. Can you please share how you plan on managing funds so that the UWSA is able to continue to run in a healthy financial manner?
Thank you. So when I voted no, the reason I voted no is because a lot of the events that students want to do and want to see, they want to see them while they're here, right? They want to see them in their undergrad and their med school when they're here. And if we keep, like he said, if we keep money for the future, like 10 years or 20 years down the road, I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It is great because it's true that we do need reserves and we do need to tap into that funding sometimes, but I feel like we can avoid it. If we do smart budgeting and we budget responsibly, we wouldn't have to dip into that long-term budget. So in the next coming year, I feel like if we're planning our events in a proper manner, we can do with what we have and not already touch what we are saving. So that's why I voted no, is I'm not saving the next year's money for the year after that. I'm using that money for that year because we have money saved, and I want to keep that money saved for a year when we really, really need it, and I think we can make work with what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes towards everyone. A student comes in very frustrated that their bus pass opt-out has been denied. They are threatening to resort to legal action. You have gone over your limit on how many students have opted out. What are the steps you will take to de-escalate the situation? And we can start with, does anyone want to start? Mary?
Okay. While being on the board, I have firsthand witnessed and actively heard the situation portrayed not just once, but multiple times. And honestly, this is where the transparency comes through, is we have to make it transparent to students that the bus pass isn't just for you yourself. It's for the student the student body as a whole. It's for the students that don't have access to the bus when they're coming away from where their home is, or coming away, like living on residence, or even if they're not living on residence, living throughout the city of Windsor or farther. The bus pass is for all students to be able to have fair chance in getting to their classes and getting around the city in order to live a life that is suitable to their needs and wants.
Really?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. A student comes in very frustrated that their bus pass opt-out has been denied. They are threatening to resort to legal action. You have gone over your limit on how many students you have opted out. What are the next steps you would take to de-escalate the situation?
Okay, going off of what Mary said, it's very true. We have to be very transparent during that time because, like she said, it's for the student body. It's not just for one individual student. It is for the student body. And just today, when I was campaigning, I've asked students what is something you want to see, and I've had multiple students come up to me complaining about bus passes and how the opt-out is not ideal for them. And I did struggle answering that question to them at the time because it's for someone that doesn't take the bus and for someone that opts out every single year without trouble, it is hard for me to see from that perspective. But seeing students talk about it time and time again means there has to be a change in the system, or there has to be a way that we can help students even after the opt-out is not eligible. there's things that we can try to do to help students afterwards. And if we can have a sit down with that student and propose a solution that benefits them, then we can alleviate some of the stress that they're feeling. Because at the end of the day, that bus opt-out check is really useful to buy textbooks or to allocate money anywhere else in your personal spending. So I do understand on that end as to why students are very adamant. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we move on, I want to make a point of clarification about the bus pass to our candidates and to the folks in the audience. The bus pass was passed through a referendum, and there are very specific rules that were associated with that referendum. So your options to de-escalate situations and providing solutions are limited because of that. Beyond that, the bus pass is operated through a contract that's negotiated with Transit Windsor, OPUS, GSS, and UWSA. So when you are thinking about the bus pass, it's not just the bus pass in isolation, it's not in a vacuum. It operates with many different parts and sections. So going back to the question, your only step will be to de-escalate the situation. There are very little solutions that could be provided otherwise, but if you have a solution that you want to propose, then I suggest that you propose that solution. And with that, you can consider that as a rebuttal to your answer, Gurleen, and I will allow you 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Okay, so the way I'm gonna go off that is, there are rules we have to follow, I do understand that, but I do believe if given the chance, we could negotiate. There's always room for negotiations, that's what I've learned, there's always room for something, and yes, it's true, the key is to de-escalate, and that is the thing that we always do, and I do agree that that is what we have to do in every situation. But if you keep just de-escalating every single time, every student's gonna feel left, like, maybe not in the butt.
Thank you. Shafiq?
It's not my saying, this is my father's saying. When you're stuck in a cage, the first thing you should do is look for a solution in the cage, not outside of it. The meaning behind that quote is when you're in that situation where clearly there's rules you have to follow, and the only thing you can now do is de-escalate, the first action I would take, the keyword, why. Explain to the student why they're in the situation they're in. Almost 99% of the problems students usually have with unions and other organizations, they weren't aware. Almost always, I wasn't sure I could opt out in time. I forgot about the deadline. Let them know the why. What I would do to avoid the situation in the future after de-escalating by explaining the why is to have a counter on the UWSA app. Very simple for a computer science student like me. Every time someone opts out, the counter decreases. You do an Instagram post every month or bi-weekly. Hey guys, only this many opt-outs are left. Again, please make sure you opt out on time. We're limited on number of opt-outs. When you tell them the why and you de-escalate properly, you build a stronger UWSA. Thank you.
I'm going to once again put a point of clarification. The opt-out period is open, and then once the opt-out period closes, there is a process, again, through the referendum that we follow. So there are specific people mentioned in the referendum that get first priority. They have to be opted out. And then after they are opted out, the manual opt-out then begins with Claudiana and the VPFO taking on that burden of responsibility. It wouldn't be sustainable to have a countdown because the amount of opt-outs that are agreed upon the opt-out period would have closed prior to anything. So there is no room for people to further reach out. So bearing that in mind as a rebuttal, you have 30 seconds to now respond.
I love that she added that. It tells you how we're all learning into this role. To follow up on Ghallia's amazing reply there and the rebuttal to me. Again, my answer wouldn't change. Still show the student the why. Of course, if a counter isn't feasible, that's completely okay. Still have it on the website, the exact policies you just mentioned. Similarly, a lot of students, as Ghallia mentioned earlier, use social media. Post it on Instagram. Guys, these are our bus pass policies. If you ask the average student about the policies you just mentioned, they'll look at you like they're looking like a deer looking in headlights. They have no idea. So my answer stays the same in a different manner. Show them the why. Thank you.
Another point of clarification. Unfortunately, you cannot rebuttal to this one. The information is made available on UWSA's website, it is made available in the emails, and it is made available on the Instagram. Moving on, Aiden.
So I think it's a pretty simple answer because I think the only thing we can do to de-escalate the situation is like like you said, was to inform them on why they weren't able to be opted out. And realistically, there's not much else we can do because, as Ghallia mentioned, in the contract, we have a contract with them, so we can't change that. And sure, there might be room for negotiation, but for the most part, it's unlikely. So I think the best thing that we can do is inform them, let them know that sorry about that, like next semester, just try getting in earlier, and again, letting them know why it happened.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. This next question also goes to all the candidates. We're going to start with Aiden and then make our way to Mary Mia. As VPFO, you will deal with student group conflicts. How will you handle these conflicts?
Student group conflicts, you mean like with funding?
Conflicts in general.
Conflicts in general regarding student. I think, well, to take a stab at the funding, obviously some clubs might get mad at why did they get funding and why didn't we? And I think with that, same thing. We have to inform them, we have to be transparent about why we're making these decisions and based on what information. And we're going to explain to them that we're not making these decisions based off of opinion or based off of because it's a popular opinion. No, we're doing them because this is what the information shows us. And for example, if they send in a request and we deem that they don't deserve funding, we're not going to just send them a message, hey, sorry, no funding for you. I'll try to explain to them why they don't deserve funding or why they should try reapplying or changing their answer or something along those lines.
I have a 3-step solution to resolving any conflict, not just clubs. You can use it in your everyday life with your best friend. Communicate, negotiate, analyze. The first step, meet together with the club, with both parties. If I need to do it separately to avoid further conflict, I can do that too. Understand their needs. The second step, negotiate. If it's a win-win for both clubs, no matter what they're getting out of it, almost always you can resolve the conflict. 99% of conflicts stay because only one party wins and the other one feels dissatisfied. Once both parties get at least a little bit out of it, that's when you come and analyze and look at the board and you say, moving forward, how can we avoid that conflict? So that would be my 3-step plan to avoid conflicts within student groups. Thank you.
I just want to add a point of information. There is a student groups handbook that has been edited this year by the current VPFO, and it does include a list of steps that have to be taken by the VPFO and or the student groups coordinator to ensure that student groups conflicts are mitigated in the most reasonable way. So there is a system in place. I think the question more so is asking how would you deal with it when it comes to conflicts itself. So while your answer, you don't have to add or rebel to this. It's just a point of information for you all to know that a process does exist within the UWSA.
So for me, it depends on case-by-case basis. Of course, we go through the process, but each situation has its own complexities. So when you go through the process that we have implemented by our VPFO, you essentially don't want to just leave it at that. You want to try to make sure that both parties know the why. We've been talking about why a lot today, and that is true. The why is really important. It comes with intention. So what is the intention behind the decisions that we make? What is the intention behind the reasons that we give? And that's very important. And to mitigate conflict, the best way to do it is to have that sit down and be like, okay, this is the truth. Be very transparent. Because if you're trying to be like, oh, this person's feelings are right, that's not going to help anybody in the long run. You have to be truthful, because that will be beneficial for everybody involved. Thank you.
From serving on the board for the past 2 years and sitting on the finance committee for both of those, when we have conflicts with different groups, it is not always the easiest to go upon, especially on the VPFO individually, since some of these conflicts may rely on funding that was potentially denied or not fully given to their full desired full amount. That is in place because we have a finance committee that has to make sure that all funding that could potentially go to any clubs or societies or groups is allocated accountably and that it is properly given by a particular amount. You cannot just give the full amount always. It will just have to be given out accordingly to not just the VPFO's interest but to the entire finance committee.
Thank you, Mary Mia. Our next question is to all the candidates again. We can start from Gurley. and then we'll go around. Fantastic. This one's long, so I need us all to listen very carefully. It has a little bit of a preamble. Bill C-33 allows certain student fees to become opt-outable or opt-in, depending on the regulations established under the legislation. During the 2018 Student Choice Initiative, the UWSA experienced significant revenue loss due in part to institutional procedures created in response to those regulations and their interpretation. As VPFO, how would you use your financial expertise and advocacy role to ensure the UWSA can sustain and grow its revenue while continuing to provide essential student services under a similar regulatory environment, particularly where institutional processes may create additional roadblocks?
That is a really, really good question. Okay, it's a loaded one. Give me a second here.
Take your time.
So, yes, opting out in many instances will result in a possibility of losing those funds, which is not easy on the role as a whole. But to ensure that students and the UWSA are benefiting both, there has to be a middle ground. So if there is a way to meet that middle ground for both parties involved, and that would be ideal. But with Bill 33, English. Sorry guys, it's been a long day. But with this bill, it does make it a little bit harder because yes, it allows for more opt-outs, but it does come with more regulations. So yes, you can opt out of this, and this, but guess what? You can't do this, and this. So it does come with its own burdens as well. Thank you. Shafin?
Could you repeat the question for the sake of my mind?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Bill C-33 allows certain student fees to become opt-outable or opt-in, depending on regulations established under the legislation. During the 2018 Student Choice Initiative, the UWSA experienced significant revenue loss due in part to institutional procedures created in response to those regulations and their interpretation. As VPFO, how would you use your financial expertise and advocacy role to ensure the UWSA can sustain and grow its revenue while continuing to provide essential student services under a similar regulatory environment, particularly where institutional processes may create additional roadblocks?
When you're in a tight spot like that, where you can opt in or out and it's impacting your current budget, but at the same time you have to keep providing for students, you always have to look for multiple lanes on the same road. So my expertise would focus on the skills I've gained as Vice President at the Muslim Student Association to create sponsorship deals. It's about partnering with other organizations and having a revenue stacked in the back for worst case scenario. So that would be my way to go about it. I would have a worst case scenario plan in place, and there would be multiple lanes to that same goal. So we would have sponsorships from different organizations that would build on that fund while we continue providing services. At any point, if we are in a lack of budget, we can go back to that reserve and take a little and put more in. Of course, all of this would be done through a scholarship coordinator who would constantly give us new scholarships that we can actually put towards the students. So that's my goal, is taking that sponsorship and using it as a reserve. Thank you.
Aiden.
So I think building up on what Shafin said, I think sponsorships are a great idea, but it's only one part of the equation. So yes, we could use sponsorships to help bring more funding, to be able to allocate it to these fees, but another thing that we should do, it never hurts to always give everything a second look. What I mean by that is looking at all of the fees, which ones affect the students the most, and again, I already said this, but I think it's really important that we understand, why these fees are going to, why we are paying for these fees and stuff like that. So I think the first thing would be to obviously get sponsorships, and then the second thing would be to understand and analyze the fees that we currently have.
With this opt-in and opt-out idea, it would be, we are accountable for all the money as VPFO that comes in and out of the UWSA. With this being said, it may be a bit more difficult to receive scholarships, especially if we we are struggling as is, and trying to get those scholarships may be a bit difficult. If that is the case, we have to give everything a second look. We have to prioritize the things that students need most and that they access or use the most throughout their school year. We have to make sure all students are able to fully receive the best to their ability with the tuition that they are paying. And with that, we just have to be with our proactive financial planning. We have to overlook everything.
Next question. It's to all candidates once again. The VPFO is a very demanding role. You are both Vice President of Finance and Operations, meaning you deal with the financial portfolio and the operational portfolio, and you are the primary signatory as the Chief Financial Officer. How are you going to balance your school load and the demands of your role and ensure timely responses to students and UWSA staff? We're going to start from Shafin.
I have extensive experience balancing academics with the professional world. Currently, I work at the Student Recruitment Office at the University of Windsor in the Office of Enrollment Management. In that office, I work directly with international and domestic students to recruit them to Windsor. And I use the same approach I've used in that office to balance academics, and that is organization of time and priority. It always comes down to how responsible you are with your decisions. I'm going to pick classes that are later on earlier in the day to ensure I have sufficient time to work during office hours. Second, but even most importantly, when you're a student, it goes without saying you will have to do extra over hours to ensure you're paying the right services to your role. So it won't just be coming in the office at 8 a.m. and leaving at 5 p.m. I can guarantee you I'll be there at midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 6 a.m. Doesn't matter when you need me, I will be there. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. The VPFO is a very demanding role. You are both the Vice President of Finance and Operations. So you're dealing with the financial portfolio and the operational portfolio, and you are also the main signatory as the Chief Financial Officer at the UWSA. How are you going to balance your school load and the demands of your role and ensure timely responses to students and UWSA staff?
So I think for starters, the first thing that I've already established with myself is that currently I have a job. I'm working kind of part-time there. If I were to get VPFO, I would take a leave of absence for a year so that I could focus more time on that role and on VPFO and also school. And also people, I think, underestimate the power of time management. Because realistically, if I have an aligned schedule, if I plan my days out ahead of time, if I know what I'm going to do, I will be able to get everything done. And I think that's just the most important part, knowing what you're going to do and knowing all the deadlines and just being able to balance both school and obviously VPFO.
We'll go to Marimia.
I have always dealt with the overload of work. I was participating in the IB program in high school, and then I also worked a job as well. So academics and work has always been an overload, plus everyday lives like everyone else. But throughout my time at the university, sitting on both the board and being an active participant throughout almost all board meetings, and working basically a full-time job and being a full-time student and also a full-time flight school student, I have adequately divided my time accordingly using an agenda, using timetables, and if I'm to become VPFO, time delegation would be a key importance. Obviously, I would have to give up one, probably my job, but you just have to time manage, and that is something I have always been able to do. So I have no fear that I would not be able to accommodate all the needs and responsibilities for VPFO.
Thank you. Shirley.
Okay, so I've never not been busy. It's a running joke with my friends that I'm never free for anything. But as of right now, I'm juggling a job, family stuff, a bunch of clubs, and my academics. And I schedule everything to the T. I have scheduled my grades, I have everything scheduled, but not everything always goes according to your schedule. You will have days where you can plan everything to the T, but guess what? A curveball. Something will go horribly wrong and you have to navigate a whole new situation and fit that into your already busy schedule. And not to toot my own horn, I think I've become a professional at this point, because every time I plan something and I want to go through it exactly how I planned, there will be something new that will be thrown in my way, and I can deal with it at the end of the day. I can have a whole busy schedule with A, B, C, D, and E, and then I'll get a Z out of nowhere, and I'll find a way to work it in. So if I do become VPFO, I would take a step back from my clubs and put priority on VPFO, but I don't think I'll have a hard time doing everything. Thank you.
There's a lot of things I want to say about VPFO. I wish you all the best of luck, whoever's elected. It truly is a very, very time-consuming position. So much so that it's advertised as a part-time job, but after dealing with the UWSA, I can assure you the VPFO has never had a part-time job. They are easily working 60 to 80 hours a week, and that's just getting the bare minimum done. And still at that point, there's unread emails and there's unread requests. There is a lot to the role. So while I do applaud all of your confidence in yourself, I think that's important to also recognize that the VPF role is instrumental at the UWSA, and it takes a lot of organization, beyond time management, beyond an agenda. Those curveballs are never ending. You have curveballs Z.1 all the way to Z.infinity. It's a very, very hard role to manage. But I hope whoever gets elected, you will be wonderful at it. And with the support of the full-time staff, I'm sure there are no hurdles anyone can't cross. Just to close off, we are now done the audience Q&A. Thank you all for your answers, candidates. You got an extended one because it was very popular. We're going to now move on to closing remarks. Closing statements. You will all now have the opportunity to give your closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute to summarize their message and encourage student participation in the election. Rebuttals, again, are not permitted during closing statements. We will start from Mary Mia and then make our way down to Aiden.
Overall, thank you, Ghallia, for having us. And basically, for my campaign, I just want to make sure that everything is well focused on, and that if I'm to be elected VPFO, I will show full transparency, equitable, and responsible activities throughout the position. I want to make sure that student fees are not a mystery to any student. If they have any issues with anything, I will always have an open door policy, open text policy, open email, anything they need. And I want to make sure everything is translated into meaningful opportunities and services that can support everyone during these difficult times financially. And I would be honored in serving you with the VPFO role. Thank you.
We've heard a lot today from all of us. We're all busy candidates, and it's going to be hard for people to vote, and I understand that. But through all the talk that we had today, I've figured out 3 key things: transparency, trust, and accountability. Those are the 3 things that we talked about. Where does your money go? How are we using it? Why are we using it in a certain way? And how to navigate those situations. And at the end of the day, I'd be very honored to serve as your VPFO because, like Miriam said, I have an open door policy. That applies now and before and even after, regardless of I win or not. So this entire role is built for you. This is to empower you. This is to help you. So if you feel that that is the voice you want to see, I really appreciate your vote. Just remember, voting is from March 2nd to March 4th. Thank you.
Amazing closing statements. Now, before I say my one, I just want to put my clipboard kindly down below the chair because my closing statement comes from my heart, not from the script. And I truly mean this, and Ghallia expanded more on it on the number of hours worked as a VPFO. Whoever wins this role, it's not about winning it, it's about surviving it. It's one of the roles that requires the most pressure, in my opinion, out of all the executive roles. And I believe Shafin Aziz is the man that can handle that pressure. I really hope you vote for me, and regardless of who wins, I know UWS will be better tomorrow and in the future. Thank you.
So again, thank you for everyone coming in. Thank you, Ghallia, for the good questions. But I want to just say a quick few things that I think it's very easy to come up here and say that, we're going to all have transparency and we're going to be doing things like take accountability, but the thing that it comes down to is that are we actually going to do it? And for me, the thing is, this is my future. Like, this isn't something that if I do bad at this, I can just move on and go on to the next thing. No, this is going to affect my reputation. This is going to affect who I am. So if I do a bad job in this position, I'm not only just, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll move on. No, it's going to be, people are going to remember who I am. If anything, I could get removed from the role. And obviously, if I do that, I'm definitely not going to get elected next year. So I think that I'm not only going to be proving it to you guys, but I'm going to be proving it to myself that I can do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our wonderful candidates. Like Louis said, you have wonderful choices in front of you. Thank you for your professionalism and engagement this evening, and thank you to everyone in attendance as well. Thank you for your questions and for your participation. A reminder to all students that voting will take place during the official voting period, March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, opening at midnight on March 2nd and closing at 5 p.m. on March 4th. Candidate profiles and voting information are available on the UWSA Elections website. Your voice matters. Your voice is how you shape the future of student leadership at the University of Windsor. And that concludes the Vice President, Finance and Operations debate. Congratulations to all of our candidates.